Good morning, Mr. Vice President and Senators.
Morning.
This morning I want to talk about the importance of growing leaders. Romans chapter 14, verse 19 states, "So then let us pursue what makes for peace and for mutual upbringing. As leaders, you are all here because you were given opportunities to develop your leadership style. You are here because you were mentored by someone, or maybe many people, and someone saw potential in you and fanned the flame in your life. Now as leaders, it is your responsibility to discern the people around you and to be determined as a person, to be a person who will invest in others and develop a legacy of leadership development. Someone has said, a Chinese philosopher once said, if you plant for a year, plant rice. If you plant for 10 years, plant trees. If you plan for 100 years, educate children, but I want to say, invest in leaders. All around you are gifted persons who need the opportunity for a person to discern their ability, give them opportunities, and seek to mentor them. The reality is that when you begin this journey to develop leaders, there will be successes and setbacks, but you must continue to invest in people anyway. Our land and our people are our most precious resources, and we have to build up and use all the things that God has given us to equip our people to be good stewards of our blessings and to develop to their full potential. We cannot do all the work by ourselves. There is too much work to be done. And as we develop our nation, we must develop in a comprehensive way so that all hands can be on deck. As leaders, keep looking on your team and in your social group to determine who are the next level potential leaders that you need to train to move up and join the team. Hebrews 10 and 24 states, and let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works. When we train and empower others, the load can become lighter and we can accomplish more together. But I want to give you a caveat. Make sure that you mentor and train in positive ways so that you will cultivate holistic, healthy leaders. And then we must not be afraid to raise up leaders. There will always be persons with greater skills and abilities than you or I. And there will always be persons with lesser abilities. We must not be afraid to operate and to develop leaders because God opens doors for us and God closes doors. And he will show us the path that he has for our lives. Always be a person who sows good words, positive actions, and acts in a responsible and kind manner towards others. We live in a time where things sown returns quickly to us. And so we must always be raising up leaders and the next set of leaders in areas of our society in positive and wonderful ways. Ephesians 4 and 29 says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear you. And finally, remember to always display the best version of you every day. You never know how many people respect, honor, and look to you to serve as their mentor. You only know when you mess up. I challenge you, senators, to remember it is an honor to serve in this chamber. And many are looking to you to serve in an excellent way. You are responsible you have many responsibilities, and the whole nation is dependent on you to serve and lead with integrity. Remember, this is your season, so give of your best service and always strive to raise up others. Titus 2 and 7 and 8 says, in everything, set them an example by doing what is good. In your teaching, show integrity, seriousness, and soundness of speech that cannot be condemned, so that those who oppose you may be ashamed because they will have nothing bad to say. No matter what you accomplish, no matter what accomplishment you make, someone helped you. Althea Gibson. May each senator Be a person who will inspire many to accomplish their life's goals. Let's pray. Dear God, help us during this Lenten season to be discerning, that we will continue to lift up and disciple others in the way of leadership. May the senators be comfortable enough as individuals to not fear and to raise up other leaders. God, guide them in all that they do. Bless and protect their families. And we pray, O Lord, that this will be a wonderful day of deliberation and discussion. Strengthen, and preserve, and keep them in all their ways. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Please join in the prayer of our Lord. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Good morning, Senators. We have an exciting debate ahead. Let's have a little bit more energy. Good morning, Senators. Good morning. Welcome to the Senate session of the morning of March 12, 2025. Adoption of the minutes.
Mr. Vice President, I move that the minutes of the session of the Senate held on Monday, 3rd of March, 2025 be adopted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of March 2025 be adopted as laid. As many are in favor, say aye. Aye. Those who oppose, say nay. The ayes have it. The minutes of the 3rd of March 2025 are adopted. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign. Swearing in of senators. Communication by the President. Good morning, Senators. First, I'd like to acknowledge Women's Month and acknowledge the absence of a few of our women attending a meeting at the United Nations, which includes Opposition Senator Maxine Seymour and Government Senator Jeanne Major. And so we have a dearth of women here in Women's Month, but Senator the Honorable Aricia Hepburn-Forbes, I know she will take up the mantle for representing all our women who are not here today. In that vein, I would also like to welcome the representatives who are here from the Kidney Association. And on their behalf and behalf of the President of the Senate, I'll just read a brief address in relation to kidney health. And so it is my pleasure to recognize and honor March as Kidney Month, a time dedicated to raising awareness about kidney health and the urgent need for prevention, early detection, and better treatment options for those affected by kidney disease in the Bahamas. Chronic kidney disease is a growing public health crisis. As the Honorable Member in the House of Assembly, Michael Darville, told Parliament last week, approximately 600 or more Bahamians, both young and old, are currently on the government-funded hemodialysis program. These numbers highlight the need for greater awareness, prevention efforts, and improved access to care. Kidney disease is often called a silent killer because symptoms can go unnoticed until conditions have significantly progressed. Diabetes and high blood pressure, two of the most common health concerns in our nation, remain the leading causes of kidney failure. This makes early detection and regular medical screenings critical in the fight against kidney disease. I wish to commend the Ministry of Health and Wellness for its proactive approach in addressing this urgent health issue. The announcement of a kidney donor transplant program marks a significant step forward, offering hope to patients who are currently dependent on dialysis. Kidney transplants not only extend and improve the quality of life, but also help reduce the long-term strain on our healthcare system. Furthermore, the government's focus on prevention and reduction strategies is essential. We must continue to push our routine screenings, public education campaigns, and improve patient support systems. At the heart of kidney health advocacy in the Bahamas is the Bahamas Kidney Association, BKA. I wish to applaud the BKA for its tireless efforts in education, awareness, and patient support. Through community outreach, free healthcare screenings and educational initiatives, the association has provided critical resources for patients and families affected by kidney disease. As we observe Kidney Month, I encourage every Bahamian to prioritize kidney health by getting regular checkups and screenings, support initiatives that advocate for better kidney care, promote healthy lifestyle choices that help prevent kidney disease, participate in Kidney Month activities, and spread awareness in our communities. Honorable Senators, kidney disease is a serious national health issue, and we all have a role to play in addressing it. Let us continue to support efforts that improve healthcare access, enhance prevention strategies, and ensure better outcomes for kidney patients. To the Bahamas Kidney Association, we commend you for your unwavering dedication to this cause. Your advocacy, education, and support have made a real difference, and we look forward to continued progress in the fight against kidney disease. Let us stand together in raising awareness and taking action. Would the representatives please stand so that the Senate may greet you? It's a pleasure to have you in the Senate chambers this morning, and we hope that you can stay just for a little bit. I think you'll help me in my job in making sure that the senators behave today. Thank you. Messages from the Governor General. Messages from the House of Assembly.
Message from the House of Assembly.
Bahamas number 35. Message to the Honorable, the President, and Honorable members of the Senate from the Speaker and representatives of the Honorable House of Assembly. The House of Assembly acquaints the Honorable, the Senate, that they have passed the following bills and desire the consent of that Honorable Chamber, namely, a bill for an act to amend the Value-Added Tax Act, a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act, a bill for an act to amend the Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act, a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute Act, a bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act. House of Assembly, Nassau, 10th March 2025. Patricia DeVoe, Speaker.
Order that the documents do lie on the table. Laying of documents by ministers. Communications by ministers. Communications by senators. Questions. Answers to questions. Presentations of petitions. Appointments of select committees. Reports of select committees. First reading of bills. Second reading of bills. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. And good morning to you and all senators. And I wish to join you, Mr. Vice President, in acknowledging the individuals from the Bahamas Kidney Association who joined us this morning, and they had to leave. So, President, you will be, Mr. Vice President, you will be on your own in terms of maintaining order. But I want to join you in commending the executives of the Bahamas Kidney Association for all of the work that they do in bringing awareness to the very, very serious problem of kidney disease in the country. As you rightly stated, it has a tremendous impact on the health of the population, and as well, it impacts productivity, and it presents apart from the human suffering and the disruption to family and the workplace, it provides a tremendous strain on the health infrastructure in the country, as well as the budget of the health department. I think the minister responsible for health and wellness spoke about it in that other place, and so it's incumbent upon all of us to become aware, to educate ourselves on the importance of kidney health and make those lifestyle adjustments that will enable us to not only enjoy good kidney health, but good health overall. And I just want to encourage the executives and the membership of the Bahamas Kidney Association as they celebrate Kidney Month and seek to bring awareness, just to keep on keeping on with their educational endeavor, because many times in organizations the work falls on a few, but it's good to see some of the familiar faces who have graced us with their presence every year since we've been in this place to bring awareness to the importance of good kidney health. Mr. Vice President, I rise to move for second reading and committal of a bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act. And this is the mechanism, Mr. Vice President, through which senators will have an opportunity to make their observations and comments on the mid-year budget performance during the 6 months ending 31st December 2024, known as the mid-year budget. And so, whilst the law of the Bahamas requires us to present a mid-year budget statement, we do not technically debate the mid-year budget unless we're bringing legislation, but the amendment to the Value Added Tax Act and in other times amendments to various pieces of legislation allows us to technically debate the mid-year budget, which is what we will be doing here today. This, Mr. Vice President, this mid-year budget statement is when we look at the requirement of the government to present a monthly fiscal report every month, quarterly fiscal reports, reporting on the performance of the government finances. This mid-year budget, we're also required, and then we have the annual budget that will follow in about 2 months. We also are required to produce a medium-term debt management strategy and publish it, whereby we inform the public and the financial community, et cetera, about the government's intention in terms of borrowing and managing the debt. We're also required to produce a fiscal strategy report, and we are also required to produce an annual borrowing plan showing how the government intends to manage borrowing during the fiscal year. And all of these, Mr. Vice President, is part of the government's effort, and some of this legislation was preceded us, but it requires and it imposes a responsibility and an obligation on the government to provide information to the public, timely information on the fiscal performance of the government, the financial performance, the state of the public finances. So we have monthly reports, we have quarterly reports, strategy, fiscal strategy, medium-term strategy, how we intend to manage the debt. And I think, Mr. Vice President, it inures for good public administration when the public is privy to this type of information in a timely manner. And I know we are endeavoring to be more timely in the production of this information, and so we are investing in technology and in personnel that will allow us to be more timely, because I know that has been one criticism, is that sometimes the information is not as timely as it needs to be, and we are addressing that, and it is our commitment to ensure that we can provide this information to the general public, the investing community, the financial community in a timely manner. Mr. Vice President, in moving the amendment to the Value-Added Tax Act, which seeks to reduce the rate of VAT charged on unprepared food from 10% to 5%, I would say, just in reference to the mid-year budget statement that was presented by the Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, that in summary, what he said, and I won't go into all of the numbers, but he encapsulated it and summarized it by saying revenues are up. Expenditure is also up, but we are not concerned about that because the increase in expenditure was due to investment in infrastructure, particularly in the Family Islands, investment in education infrastructure, particularly when we talk about repairs to school facilities and expansion of school facilities, and as well greater outlays for what we say in budget terms, personal emoluments, meaning salaries and benefits, et cetera, that go to public servants. The deficit is up at the halftime, but we are confident that during the second half of the year, when revenues tend to catch up, that we will be able to indeed catch up and meet our budget targets. And so we take a very, very positive stance on the halftime status report, and we believe that it shows that we continue to move in the right direction in terms of restoring the public finances to good health. We recognize that we have come a long way, but we also recognize that we have a long way to go. We must maintain our discipline because we must be always mindful that even though we talk about growth, increased arrivals, investments, etc., there still remains, as the Prime Minister has said, and we all know that for many people, things are still struggling. The cost of living is impacting them, and so our work does not end. We have a lot of work left to do, but we're encouraged by how far we have come. Mr. Vice President, the amendment to the Value-Added Tax Act to reduce VAT from 10% to 5% on unprepared foods is in keeping with this administration's philosophy that as we seek to recover our public finances, and we always speak in the aftermath of COVID-19, lower taxes that will spur consumer confidence and consumer spending, and as well growth in the economy, is the preferred solution. Indeed, on coming to office and being faced with a very dire financial situation, this administration developed and announced to the public a four-pronged, I call it, strategy to recover the public finances. Some countries, as you know, decided that they would cut spending, they would adopt what they call the austerity measure. A lot of the European countries did it. Everybody's budget basically was out of balance. The debt went up. Some countries adopted the philosophy that in order to come back into balance, they would cut spending, they would raise taxes to try and close that gap. Some other countries, mainly the United States, adopted the strategy that we would put money into the economy and try to get the economy going and try to grow it. In the Bahamas, what we developed was, we said we would attack this situation and seek to recover our finances by focusing on four things. We would seek to grow the economy, we would seek to improve revenue administration, control expenditure, and seek new sources of revenue. And if we did all of those things working together would bring us back into a healthy financial situation. I say the situation was dire, Mr. Vice President, because it was very dire. And we were not alone in this. Because of all the reports that come out and all of the meetings you go to, we understand that we are a small island developing nation, SIDS they call it, in the foreign affairs, they like acronyms. We're a tourism-dependent economy. Import-dependent, we import very much, most things. We're a relatively highly indebted country, and we have been experiencing low growth in this region for a number of years. And so there were several of us in this sort of basket. And all of that was the situation even before COVID. So we were, we had a relatively high debt, not unsustainable, but relatively high. We were experiencing low growth, and we had an economy that's very, very narrow, focused on tourism, and we had a lot of imports. So in a delicate situation. And we were all very, very hard hit, Mr. Vice President. And in the Bahamas particularly, because when we look at, I had the benefit of looking at a report produced by the IDB back in 2022, and it was speaking about the state of the countries in the Caribbean, the IDB IDB Caribbean constituency. And our colleague is up there now. A former colleague, Senator Lightman, working in the Caribbean constituency. But they produced a report showing the impact of COVID-19 on the economies of the Caribbean countries. And just about all of them had a tremendous increase in their debt to GDP before and after. And so in the Bahamas, before COVID-19, our debt to GDP was 59.7%. That was in 2019. By 2021, that had grown to 103.3%. In Barbados, before COVID, their debt to GDP was 123.2%, and after COVID, it was 135. It went up even higher. In Guyana, well, they were a little different. Before COVID, in 2019, they were 43.6, and afterwards, they were 42.9. And Jamaica, 2019, it was 94.2, and then they went down to 92.3. Suriname, Suriname 85.2 in 2019, 125 in 2021, and Trinidad and Tobago, they were a little bit higher, 45, and they went up to 60. But it goes to show that this COVID-19 pandemic had an impact on all of our region, and some countries decided to attack it in a different way, and as I said, we decided to adopt this four-pronged approach. Let's grow the economy. And you continue to grow it by, accelerate the growth by, in those final days of COVID-19, we had to just continue to address COVID. Of course, we introduced the free testing, we opened the economy safely, and we undertook to cut taxes to promote growth. Improve revenue administration. Do a better job of collecting from those who owe and have the means to pay. That doesn't mean chasing down, the ordinary Bahamian or the small man to try to squeeze out of him, but we know that there are some big operations in this country. There are some individuals who don't live here, but they own property here. We have to make sure that we do a better job of collecting that. We have to make sure we are properly staffed in our administration. They have the proper resources. And so we improve, we close those loopholes, and collect what's on the books. And I always, Mr. Vice President, we don't hear it as much anymore, but it used to be a few years ago where we often hear that, well, there are X amount of millions of dollars of outstanding property tax. I remember when we introduced VAT, it said, go and collect that, and you wouldn't have to, you wouldn't have to introduce VAT. But it's a long-standing problem, and it requires resources and people to be able to go and identify and collect. And so what we said, we're going to grow, we're going to improve revenue administration, we're going to contain your costs, identify areas where there's wastage and try to eliminate it, and seek new sources of revenue. Growing the economy, Mr. Vice President, also requires, a major part of it, attracting foreign direct investment. making it easier for people to get into and stay in business and to ensure that their businesses grow. Of course, I spoke with revenue administration and cost containment. We knew that growth alone would not do it. It would be delusional because we knew that in the years prior, the region was growing at a relatively slow rate. We knew that we couldn't tax our way out of it because that would be counterproductive. Now, some countries, and I know, Mr. Vice President, I remember early in the administration on social media, you would get these things coming around on WhatsApp saying, this is what this one is doing in this country. This is what this one is doing. Barbados is freezing the VAT on gas. Barbados is putting this control over there. But, you know, in Barbados, they also introduced a 15% surcharge on corporate income tax. So, you know, you had to pay, if you're in business, you had to pay an extra 15%. They also introduced a 1% income tax surcharge. They call it a pandemic levy. So if you were making over about $3,200 US per month, you paid 1% into a levy. Now that's good. Perhaps that's patriotic and all of that, but I'd like to see it. I wouldn't like to be the one to try it here, you know. So we said, you know, no increased taxation because it would be counterproductive. But some people, like I said in Barbados, they said, okay, we're coming out of an extraordinary situation. Every citizen who makes over $3,200 US per month has to pay 1% of that. I think that's $32 a month. It works out to about $300 odd per year into a fund in order to help, right? And we know that we can't say that, you know, we're just going to do a better job of collecting, that we're going to go out and collect everything that's outstanding, because it won't happen. There's circumstances, people have gone out of business, there's errors in your information, and, you know, any number of things. You just can't say, okay, I'm going to go and collect that 800 and we'll be back. I mean, no, and you have to be realistic, because when you put these strategies out and you say, and a rating agency comes to speak to you, or the IMF is speaking to you, or the IDB, or these other partners, and they say, well, how are you going to, what's your plan? You have to have a realistic plan, and we thought our plan was realistic. We didn't entertain severe cost cutting because, you know, again, that would tend to be counterproductive. We take the view that let's try and be more surgical in identifying waste, etc., and cost cut that way. I think, Mr. Vice President, the time has shown over the last 3.5, almost 4 years, that the strategy has borne fruit in the form of economic recovery, reduced unemployment. It means increased employment, improved finances. I think investor confidence has improved. And we look at some of those professional people whose job it is to look at how our financial instruments trade on the market. That has improved very much. Our investor ratings have stabilized. And we were able to continue to service and refinancing debt that has come to maturity. And I say that, and it might seem obvious, Mr. Vice President, but you know, in those early days when we were beginning to recover, there were many, many people who thought that the Bahamas would not be able to recover without doing something like going to the IMF. So, Mr. Vice President, we have come a good ways. I think we are on a positive track, but this is no time to rest on laurels. We have to continue to work and maintain discipline, and you have to get to a position, because, you know, you have natural disaster, you have health pandemic or health crises, and then, you know, we always talk about, you know, geopolitical uncertainty, and you know, I think it wouldn't be an overstatement to say, you know, we are in an era now of severe and tremendous geopolitical uncertainty and whiplash of policy, etc. So we have to, as a country, be able to be in a position, as best we can, small country that we are, be in a position to be able to withstand all of these things. And a big part of it is to have healthy public finances. Mr. Vice President, this amendment to the VAT bill is in keeping with our strategy to lower the tax burden on the Bahamian people as much as we can and in a methodical and disciplined way. Back in March 2021, Mr. Vice President, the Progressive Liberal Party, then in opposition, published a document, an economic plan, where we pledged to reduce the rate of VAT from 12% to 10%. Roundly ridiculed in some circles, you're lying, oh, that's a lie, you're not going to do it, electioneering. And we came in and effective January 1st, 2022, we reduced the rate of VAT from 12% to 10%. Again, a lot of skepticism from all quarters, international observers, financial institutions, political opposition. Or you're going to bust your budget and blow a hole in it. No, we felt that it was, if we had all four components working together, if we were able to grow the economy, if we were able to collect some more, do a better job of collecting, control expenditure, and find some new sources of revenue, we could do it. So effective January 1st, 2021, in keeping with our commitment, we reduced VAT from 12% to 10%. All we're looking at the cost of living, Mr. Vice President. Also in that 2022-2023 budget, we implemented a raft, I'll call it, a whole lot of reductions in customs duties on things from food items, building supplies, and IT-related products. And again, no, well, perhaps, but the idea being, at that time, cost of living going up, the world is emerging from COVID-19, the supply chains, meaning the way things are shipped across the world, they're all messed up and clogged up. We recall all the photos of all the ships outside the port of Los Angeles, can't even get into the port to unload the goods, and not enough truckers. Same thing on the East Coast, just some supply lines clogged up. Goods can't get to consumers, prices going up, cost of living going up, people crying. And we look and we say, well, we are small players in this global economy. We are import-dependent economy. What can we do? We can't do much, can't do a lot in the short run. But what we can do is we can ease the cost of living in terms of taxation on things like food. And we are hopeful that when we reduce the customs duty on food, that would be passed along by the merchants. And in the absence of total price control on everything, you sort of depend on their Christian ethic to pass it on. So what I'm trying to say, what we did, Mr. Vice President, in the early stages. So in January, we reduced VAT 10% across the board. I must say we did eliminate exemptions. Let me not leave that out, because we thought, the reduction across the board would more than make up for the elimination of those exemptions. But on food, I said, what we're going to do, wherever there's duty, we'll take it to zero. So on things like almond milk, asparagus, beans, baking powder, beets, broccoli, Brussels sprout, cabbage, carrots, cassava, cauliflower, celery, cheese, we eliminated duty. It was only 5%, but we took off the 5% and make it zero. On chicken, the import duty was 30%. We reduced it from 30% to 10%. The Bahamians eat a lot of chicken. We had a joke, was a personal word, but it's consumed a lot. At the same time, when doing that, aware that we have local producers, and particularly one big local producer we contacted them, spoke with them, we were able to arrange to give them some concession so that they could be protected. And I think we're going to be talking with them some more with this reduction to make sure that we are not negatively impacting them. Big bird, yeah. So, and I remember one of the managers, not going to call your name, of one of the big stores called me a few days after we announced the reduction of the duty on chicken from, well, chicken parts, the legs, the wing, etc., that is mostly consumed. Called me and said, well, Minister, I just want you to know that we are dropping our prices effective a couple of days afterwards, because he was passing it on. Chicken eggs, we took from 30% to 5%. Corn, cowpeas, cucumbers, sweet potato, some other things, garlic, hot pepper, a range of things, lettuce, mushrooms, peas, prepared beef went from 20 to 0, prepared fish went from 40 to 20, prepared meats, that's the sandwich meats, etc., went from 20% duty to 0, prepared pork went from 20 to 0, prepared turkey went from 20 to 0. Preserved fruits and vegetables went from 25 to 0. Protein substances, those who work out and drink protein shakes, that went from 20 to 0, 20% duty down to 0. Pumpkins, pumpkins went from 5 to 0. Radishes, shell peas, 5 to 0, soy milk, spinach, squash, sweet pepper, turnips. Yeast went, for those who bake, went from 20 to 0. And so in the early stages of the administration, what I wanted to demonstrate, Mr. Vice President, that what we could do in terms of impacting the cost of living from a duty perspective, we did right away. We also did it with, we looked at IT products, things like telecommunications equipment, computer accessories, headphones, printers, telecommunications devices, dropped the duty to encourage digitization. We went further in terms of building supplies. So for air conditioning supplies, aluminum shingles, bar joists, flashing, the stuff you put around when you finish shingling that, what do you call that, Senator? You're right at the end of the roof there, joint compound, light fixtures, lime, a whole raft of building materials. Said we were reducing duty because, again, cost of living, cost of housing. Let's see what we can do. That same budget, we took down the duty on hybrid vehicles. It was 10% on vehicles under 50,000 and 65% on vehicles over 50,000. And we just made all hybrids 25% to encourage the use of hybrids. For for hybrid cars and trucks over 70,000, it used to be 10%. Again, we took it all to 25%. We also, at that time, increased the real property tax exemption for residents. So previously it was if your house was valued at $250,000 or less, you paid 0 and you lived in it, you paid 0 real property tax. We raised that to $300,000. All right? That represented a savings because you're tax-free on an additional $50,000. That represented $200-300 a year. I got to check my figure, but that's when I calculated. That's what it was. I didn't write it down, but it represented a savings, and it adds up. So you might say, that's not a lot, but when you add that on to what you're saving on your grocery bill because of the reduction, and so I'm saying, Mr. Vice President, that sometimes you hear from some quarters, they say, tax, tax, tax. You're taxing the people, you're taxing the people. But what I wanted to demonstrate was that we took the exact opposite track, dropping taxes. On October 11th, 2022, Mr. Vice President, Prime Minister Davis announced that the minimum wage will increase from $210 a week to $260 a week, effective January 1st, 2023 for the private sector, but July 1st, 2022, retroactively for the public sector. So, well, yeah, we didn't, senators didn't get it, but we do a public service. Yeah, we volunteer. But, again, back to July 1st, 2020, so public servants got those who were impacted got a nice little lump sum, 6 months at the end of the year. And then in the private sector, minimum wage increase to $260 a week. The last time, and so that the last time minimum wage rose was in 2015 when Perry Christie was prime minister, when it went from 150 to 210. And so, again, addressing the cost of living, increase the minimum wage. It's not enough. There's more work to be done, and sometime soon we hope to be able to address it and really move towards a livable wage, and we work with our partners to bring that to fruition. But reducing taxes on things like food, building materials, helping people to move to the digital age, increasing the minimum wage. Around that same time, Mr. Vice President, we recall we expanded price control on a range of other grocery items for 6 months, and on pharmaceuticals, we put on pharmaceuticals for 3 months. And boy, I took a beating. You know, what I learned in this business, Mr. Vice President, is, you know, sometimes people might oppose you, but if it's not au fait or if it's not politically correct to oppose it, they say, well, you didn't consult me. Let's talk some more. Meanwhile, the price is high and cost of living licking the Bahamian people. But, you know, we have some who just wanted to talk, you know. But we did it. We put in some temporary expanded price controls on food for 6 months and on pharmaceuticals for 3 months. And we think it had an impact, Mr. Vice President. You know, and extraordinary times called for extraordinary measures, and what we wanted to do, as enunciated by the Prime Minister at the time, we wanted to take immediate action, because all around the world people talking about the cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And we think it brought some relief for that time. And we're thankful for the cooperation that we got from the retail grocers and the pharmacies. Had a little rough beginning, but we were able to sit down and talk, and I think we were able to bring that relief for that time. More tax decreases followed in 2023. Again, more building materials. In 2024-2025 budget, which we are in now, we continue to lower duties on business building supplies, household items, and others, including on things like to encourage those individuals who are in the video production industry, things like drones and cameras and camera parts, items for the food services industry. We amended the Excise Act. This is very important, Mr. Vice President, because I think the impact is tremendous, and I think we need to do a better job of telling people about it. We amended the Excise Act to allow for duty-free importation of vehicles to be used in the transportation industry. So now those vehicles can be up to 5 years old. Previously, they had to be new in order to get the exemption. And so, when you combine that with the work that the Minister of Transport and Energy and Transport did in terms of issuing livery plates and taxi plates to individuals, and then you come back and say, well, you don't need to buy a new car. You can buy a car up to 5 years old. You can get a used one. And so what that did was empower hundreds of entrepreneurs. You got your plate, and now you can get a used car. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, it's huge. And so, you know, so people were able to, you don't have to buy a brand new car. You buy one 1 year, 2 years, you're up to 5 years old, now you have your plate, You're working for yourself. You're empowered. Business person. You don't have to lease. I say you don't have to lease no plate. My English teacher might. You know? You no longer have to lease a plate. Right. So, that was powerful. And again, reducing the tax burden. In this budget, what we also did when we talk about growing the economy and making it easier, previously individuals who came under the Industries Encouragement Act had to maintain a bond, had to put up a bond, meaning they had to have some money set aside in the bank. If you couldn't purchase it, a lot of them had to put some money aside, and then what the banks would do is, they would tell you if you need a $100,000 bond, you need $100,000, plus they charge you a fee. So you're forgoing the interest on your money,
Speak it, Mike.
and you have to pay a fee. And we did away with that. And so now those people can take that money that they had tied up in a bond, and so people in the light manufacturing industry would know that money is now freed up for them to be able to invest in their
You did
business.
away with it completely?
Did away with it.
Come on.
Gone.
Wow. That's governance in action.
So again, when we talk about making it easier and empowering people, stroke of a pen. And so again, Mr. Vice President, I just wanted to speak about our record of tax reduction, increase in minimum wage, and reducing impediments, removal of impediments to entrepreneurship, so Bahamians can be owners in the economy. We did something this year as well where we legislated, previously it was a policy, we legislated that only Bahamians can get licenses for the water sports industry. So we have a booming industry, we have private destinations, we have people coming here. One of the impediments was people would be told you need X amount of insurance or you need this quality of machinery, a vehicle, your boat or whatever. And so we're working on that. I had a very interesting conversation with one of the biggest things is insurance with the chairman of the managing director of the development bank, and they have found a formula where they can make that insurance available to those small business people, and that should really open up. And so we'll be pursuing that more because that was one of the main impediments. You want to do the business, but you need $2 million of insurance, and you can't get it. So you might as well say it closed. But so we legislated that, and so now we just have to move to ensure that people can really take advantage, Mr. Vice President. And so I wanted to just make people aware, once again, Mr. Vice President, as I move to my conclusion, that ours has been an administration where we've come in and we recognize that the cost of living was impacting people, and what the government can do immediately is lower taxes, and we've moved to do that. We continue to do that with this VAT amendment. We live in a big world, and so things that happen outside of us will impact us, particularly with inflation, and we know every government is impacted by it. And our neighbor to the north, that was the main issue in their election, the price of groceries, the price of eggs and bacon. And it continues to impact us. There are some longer term solutions that we need to explore. But in the short term, the government continues to do what we can in terms of reducing that tax burden, and like my colleague said, taking action, doing what we can to make sure that our people are, it's in the power of the government to do, including putting in long-term strategies for import substitution that we will continue to do. And so all of this, Mr. Vice President, over the last just under 4 years, we've been working to improve our financial health. But while doing that, I believe we've been able to bring some relief, whereby the impact of everything that's going on in the world, not totally eliminated, but the government, I think, has taken some commendable steps to minimize as best they can those impacts. Again, when we look at the mid-year budget, and we look at how far we've come from the beginning of this administration to this point, deficits are down, debt to GDP is down, employment is up, growth is up, jobs are up, business is improving, and in the midst of all this success, we recognize that there's a lot of work left to be done so that the impact of what is happening in the Bahamas in terms of everything when we talk about economic recovery not trickles down, but the benefits flow down from the top straight down to the bottom. And so we are mindful that there's a lot of work left to do. I wanted to give that a summary, Mr. Vice President, because as I said, as I take my seat, you know, some quarters people say you're taxing, you're taxing, you're taxing. Even the media pick it up, tax, tax, tax. And I think what I've demonstrated is that from the beginning of this administration to today, with this VAT amendment bill, what we have been doing is reducing taxes and thereby reducing the burden on the Bahamian people. And so with that short contribution, Mr. Vice President, I move for a second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Value-Added Tax Act.
Thank you, Senator Halkidis, for your contribution. Is there a seconder? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Kirkland Russell.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Leader, in this Honorable Senate, Mr. Alcides, I believe my phone can continue to go off all day. I can tell you why. I can tell you why. That contribution you just gave, I would suggest through this, Mr. Vice President, that you break that down into 10-minute segments and do some video to ensure that the Bahamian people understand what this government has been doing as it relates to lowering taxes on the backs of our Bahamian people from day one. Mr. Vice President, thank you, my colleague. Mr. Vice President, I feel extremely blessed to be standing on my feet to second this VAT Amendment Bill 2025. I'm truly thankful to Almighty God for all his countless blessings. I wish to thank our distinguished Prime Minister, Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Edward Davis, KC, for his confidence and that he reposes in me. Mr. Vice President, with your leave, I wish to preface my contribution by extending congratulations to three of Grand Bahama finest icons, Coach Gladstone, Moon McPhee, veteran educator Mr. Cecil Thompson, and the late Anita Doherty, a true sports legend and educator extraordinaire herself. The three icons recently had streets named after them in the city of Freeport. They are all well deserving. Mr. Vice President, we are debating the lowering of value-added tax, VAT, on all non-prepared food for Bahamian families. This bill specifies the details of the 50% reduction of VAT on unprepared food. Mr. Vice President, when the Progressive Liberal Party introduced VAT, VAT was introduced at 7.5%. The F&M administration moved it to 12%. When we came into office, we immediately moved it by 2%, down to 10%. Now we are reducing food by 5%. When you look at the reduction that this government has placed on food. The 2 plus the 5, that's 7%. Basically, what we introduced was the original 7.5. This bill, there are 67 pages of food items listed, and each page has approximately 28 items, a total of approximately 1,850 items in total, providing real savings for families. I went through that exercise to demonstrate the difference between the baseless arguments consistently being put by those opposite, that their one-page document listing 22 VAT-free bread basket items as the remedy to reduce the cost of living for the Bahamian people. Let me read that list. Baby cereal, baby food, baby formula, bread, broth and soups, butter, canned fish, cheese, condensed milk, cooking oil, one meat, corned beef, evaporated milk, flour, white flour, fresh milk, pasteurized cow milk only, not almond milk, not soy milk, grits, white grits, margarine, mayonnaise, mustard, powder detergent, people don't even use that hardly no more, rice, white rice, not basmati, jasmine, or brown rice, soup, and tomato paste. That's it. That's what they, 1,850. You could get your lamb chop, your oxtail, your short ribs, your plums, your grapes, your strawberry. You know, as a matter of fact, this reduction truly outlines the reason why they should keep their corned beef.
That's right.
Mr. Vice President, as we consider the benefits associated with this VAT amendment bill, I want to turn my attention to the midterm budget resolution tabled by our Prime Minister in that other place, which is intended to prioritize this administration's spending, while at the same time highlighting the variance between the service delivered to the Bahamian people by this Philip Brave Davis KC administration versus the service, better yet, the lack of service delivered by the former F&M administration. Mr. Vice President, the Bible story that talks about Joshua and Caleb, Moses, acting on the advice of God, sent out 12 spies to view what would be encountered whenever the Israelites entered the Promised Land. The story tells us that out of the 12 spies, only Joshua and Caleb came back with a good report of a bounty in the land and the ability to conquer all potential obstacles based on faith. The other 10 came back with a bad report of giant fighters and doom and gloom, and they put fear in the people. Unfortunately, the Israelites chose the doom and gloom story, and they wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Today, in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we are asking the same question to the Bahamian people. Will you believe the report of the members opposite who are associated with the former Menace, Doom, and Gloom administration that mishandled the pandemic, resulting in recessions and inflation caused by bad policies? VP. For example, certain businesses being allowed to open, while others were banned from opening. Some people could work, while others remained locked up in their homes. We can't forget the draconian-style curfews and lockdowns placed on the backs of Bahamians, all by the talk and do-nothing administration. Or will you believe the report of the action with compassion, brave PLP administration? Let's start the conversation with labor relations. Mr. Vice President, we must remember that this administration had inherited a labor environment that was toxic, where there appeared to be no room available for reasonable talks to resolve outstanding labor matters. There were widespread dispute and unresolved matters in almost every ministry, including disputes with nurses, senior and junior doctors, hotel workers, BEC workers, NIB workers, air traffic controllers, custom workers, immigration workers, water and sewage, teachers, environmental health, taxi union, even farmers and straw and beet vendors were up in arms with the former administration regarding unresolved complaints. And the list goes on. Many of those disputes sat for the full 4.5-year term, with the vast majority of those unions and their members never being offered an opportunity to sit at the table and be heard. This PLP administration immediately began addressing concerns of the workers and their bargaining agents, demonstrating the belief and understanding that workers' rights are human rights. The Ministry of Labor, the Honorable Pierre Glover Roll, has confirmed that the government has successfully signed some 54 industrial agreements, putting over $40 million in the pocket of those workers, while in 4.5 years, the F&M did sign one industrial agreement, and they were forced by demonstration and protest to sign that. Mr. VP, we don't have a national livable wage package yet. However, those trade agreements have caused salaries to be raised and have improved benefits, as well as workers' terms and conditions across the public service. In addition, the government has held the first public service-wide promotional exercise, the first in over 8 years, for over 3,500 employees, including over 1,000 clerical and non-uniform staff, putting millions of additional dollars in their pocket. Additionally, over 1,000 Bahamians were promoted who were on promotions backlog. And we have processed hundreds of additional general as well as executive promotions. Mr. Vice President, I pose the question to the Bahamian workers and their bargaining agents. Based on the facts I have just articulated, whose report will you believe? Mr. Vice President, this administration has been working extremely hard at growing this economy, as we have just heard from our Senate colleague. This David-led administration has done what was necessary to recover the economy from the brink of total collapse. The administration has rebuilt infrastructure, resolved outstanding legacy issues. We have helped to create new and rescue existing small and medium-sized businesses. We are investing heavily in our young people, women, and persons living with disability through our training programs, grants, and loans for startup or expansion of businesses. Bridging the gap and inspiring Bahamians of all ages to want to fight for this Bahamas, because we have demonstrated that we believe that they deserve to have it. Mr. Vice President, through our various training programs like the NTA National Training Agency, Ministry of Youth Sports, Fresh Start programs, National Youth Guard programs, and BTVI program, this administration has trained hundreds of young people with employability skills, unlike those from the former administration who left young people behind, locking them up for selling coconuts and trying to get water from the pumps, leaving behind those who they considered unemployable or disabled. The FNM talked a good talk about it's the people time, while the PLP action solutions. To date, that is to say, within the last 3 years, this administration has hired more than 2,000 young people. And I'm talking about young people hired directly into the workforce, including 300 plus Royal Police officers, 300 plus correction officers, 100 plus immigration officers, and almost 100 custom officers, and over 700 in the public service. That is over 10% of the service. Yet, all you hear is murmuring about the 1.9% of pensioners who are mostly from the armed forces, and they did not interfere with all the promotions or hiring exercises. But, Mr. Vice President, those individuals in that 1.9% are Bahamians, well-trained with taxpayers' dollars, who have been strategically engaged to train the young Bahamians and assist in ensuring that the expected resulting outcome of our various departments achieve their goal. However, the FNM won't tell the stories of how this administration honored and fully transitioned the 1,252 weeks participants who were appointed who appointment process were initiated from the former Minister administration, even though the process for many of them was not properly administered. Rather than allowing those participants to suffer and slip through the cracks created by the doom and gloom FNM rush, botch, and pre-election tricks and failed political schemes, the PLP transitioned those participants into the new public service professional engagement program, and as a result, they have continued to work under that program for the past 3 years without disruptions of their salary, of their income, and surely without being terminated. Wow. Let me just say this, Mr. Vice President. Additionally, there were about 52 individuals, mostly from the Family Islands, who received letters just before the general election under the former administration stating that they were hired, but was never appropriately actioned on the government payroll. Honorable Pierre Glover Rule, acting in consultation with our compassionate Prime Minister, action those innocent young Family Islanders, not just on the payroll, but ensure that they receive their monthly pay package, retroactive to the date they were brought on the job. And so, I ask the young people of this country, whose report will you believe? Mr. Vice President, what is important to note as it relates to rebuilding our economy was the increase to the minimum wage in 2022 from $210 per week to $260 per week, or 23.81%. And let us remember that the prior increase that was given in 2015 was also given by a PLP administration, moving the minimum wage package from $150 a week to $210 per week, or 40% increase. Let's do the basic maths then. Mr. Vice President, over the last 4 administrations, 2 being PLP, 2 being FNM, the PLP administration would have increased minimum wage by a total of $110 per week, or 63.81%. And the FNM would have increased minimum wage by $0 or 0%. Mr. Vice President, I asked the 60+ thousand Bahamians working at minimum wage, whose report will you believe? Mr. Vice President, due to time constraint, I just want to quickly remind the Bahamian people that while this administration is increasing Bahamians on the workforce, facilitating the opening of new businesses, reducing unemployment, lowering VAT on non-prepared food by 50%, signing record amount of foreign direct investment, and most importantly, investing in the social and financial upliftment of ordinary Bahamian. We have new clinics being constructed in Mangrove Key and Palmetto Point. 51 health care clinics across the nation are ongoing various stages of expansions or upgrading. In Grand Bahama, the healthcare campus that will correct outstanding legacy healthcare issues is well on the way, and the Minister, the Honorable Michael Darville, and the Prime Minister are expected to turn key on the first phase of that project by early next year. 6 other family islands are forecast for new clinics in the not-so-distant future. The Ministry of Tourism and Aviation Family Island Renaissance Program is developing or upgrading some 14 Family Island airports. This is a giant step forward that will accelerate our Family Island economic development and growth. This demonstrates the government's commitment to changing the status quo and changing lives, making tourism truly everyone's business. I asked Family Islanders the question, and did not include the many improvements to the local government bill. Whose report will you believe? Mr. Vice President, Grand Bahama continues to benefit from the hard work and heavy lifting of this administration. Residents are very excited about what's happening at Carnival Celebration Key, which is scheduled to open in July of this year. Other than the hundreds of direct jobs, this project will boost tourism arrivals in Grand Bahama to over 1.4 million by the end of this year, 2.3 million by the end of 2026, and 3.3 million by end of year 2027, making this the largest single project by Carnival anywhere in the world. I spoke to Carnival yesterday, and they were a little bit busy over the Christmas holiday and during the last few months, having a lot of events for the locals and giving away a lot of souvenirs. So they didn't have much. They said that their souvenir should be in next week. But Mr. Turner and I brought a few pens and some lanyards for everyone. They just want you to have it to know that Celebration Key is on the move.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We are pleased with the development upgrades happening to downtown Freeport, including the Straw Market, the Wind Building, and as well as the Grand Union Building, housing businesses like the Solomon Flagship Store, the Public Service, the Parliamentary Register Department, and others. Mr. Vice President, our university students are excited about the opening of the first phase of UB Downtown Campus. The Shipyard $500 million expansion project is well on the way, and here again we expect small business opportunities and great employment opportunities for decent jobs. Mr. Vice President, I'll simply mention the Royal Caribbean ITM Group and the MSC $80 million cruise port and water park redevelopment project set for the Freeport Harbor. This will be phase one of other development targeted for Grand Bahama by these two major entities. Other investment are the Eden Resort at a cost of $300 million. Then there is the Six Senses Resort Development Project. Mr. Vice President, hear this. Grand Bahama has 2 elected PLP MPs, 2 appointed senators, Senator Turner and myself, and together, led by the Honorable Ginger M. Moxie, Minister for Grand Bahama and MP for Pine Ridge, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry for Grand Bahama, the Honorable Kingsley Smith Jr., MP for West End and Bimini. We have caused many long-standing legacy issues to be addressed. While the FNM had 6 MPs, 4 cabinet ministers, including a deputy prime minister, the president of the Senate, and a governor general between 2017 and 2021, and they did nothing for the people of Grand Bahama but talk. The question I asked the good people of Grand Bahama, whose report will you believe? Bahamian woman.
That's right.
Before I close, Mr. Vice President,
Don't stop now.
I must mention the advancement made in urban renewal. Mr. Vice President, I'm happy to report that the Urban Renewal Commission has been transitioned to the Urban Renewal Authority, making a significant shift in its approach to urban development. This change was formalized firstly with the introduction of the Urban Renewal Authority Bill 2024, which all of us in here were instrumental in passing, and which outlines the establishment, functions, and powers of the new authority. I am most pleased with the position that makes room for the staff of urban renewal to be transitioned to permanent and pensionable, now having basic job protection and full rights for the first time, not having to be concerned with who wins or loses a general election. Mr. Vice President, programs will be sustainable, budgets will be clearly defined, and compassionate relief shall become the order of the day for all needing help and assistance. No more stop, review, cancel, or water down urban renewal. Prime Minister Philip Davis described the launch of the authority as a landmark achievement. The Reverend Dr. Diane Francis, one of the co-chairs of the authority, described the launch in this manner, and I quote, this is a life-changing initiative that now takes on longevity. This authority has been authored and is now activated. The possibilities are unlimited, and the Urban Renewal Authority is unstoppable. There will be consistency, compassion, and continuity that cannot be challenged, it cannot be changed or corrupted. Today, urban renewal is holistic. It brings healings, and with God on our side, it releases help, end quotes. Prime Minister Davis emphasized that this initiative builds on 2 decades of efforts to address urban challenges such as crime, youth delinquency, and community support. The authority aims to expand its impact across New Providence, Grand Bahama, and other family islands, focusing on crime prevention, small home repairs, youth program, senior programs, joint community programs, working in conjunction with the government and non-government agencies, and the list of opportunities goes on. Mr. Vice President, I must congratulate our substantive minister, the Honorable Keith Bell, and our Minister of State, the Honorable Lisa Raming, not only for their hard work in urban, but also within the Ministry of Housing. Mr. Vice President, this government has made providing affordable housing for Bahamians a priority, and may I even say, a right. And unlike the former administration, who will go down in history as the only administration that did not build one single home for a Bahamian throughout the entire archipelago. None. Not one key was given to a single.
Yeah. Just a quick point of order.
So the chair recognizes Senator the
Even though I
Honorable
was speaking,
Robin Raming.
even though I speak, point of order is he is blatantly misleading. But even though I would speak after you, you are on such a good wicket. I don't want you to end on such unnecessary negative energy.
Right.
It would be reasonable if he want to criticize the volume of homes that would have been constructed. But he simply cannot say that none and double down on it that none. So first of all, I categorically,
No, Senator
first
Raming.
of all, I am
Senator-
denying, as procedure saying.
No, Senator Raming, 1 second.
First, I'm denying.
Senator Raming, I'm trying to understand your point of order. Your point of order is that he made an inaccurate statement that the government didn't build a house.
Misleading.
And so you're asserting that the government did build a house.
I'm denying it, and in the process of denying it, it is now his duty to establish and to prove that not exactly like he said, a single house was built under the Minnis administration. All right? No, it's not my ground. I deny it. Y'all been here long enough. You should know the procedure, man. This ain't elementary school. So unless he's prepared to categorically prove that at this time, because I'm denying it, then he needs to withdraw that.
I'm not sure you can prove a negative, but Senator,
You can't prove a negative, sir, and this is that no car exists on the
Your-
Bahamas.
sorry,
That's an empirical clear statement. He said none.
that the government did not build a
I am
house.
denying it.
Okay, Senator Russell, can you please state the basis on which you made your statement?
Mr.
Your point of order is noted. Your point of order is
Mr.
noted.
Mr. Vice President, so I could move on and complete, I'm wrapping up, right? Let me say this. Now, if they could prove it, fine, but let me say this. It is not known that the former administration built a single home for Bahamians.
Again, a point of order. When he says it's not owned, he's
No,
misleading
I said
again.
known.
Senator,
Listen carefully. Listen
sorry,
carefully.
one
You don't
person
have
has
a
the
right to
floor.
a point of order. Let's not
Sorry.
go there. Let me stand.
Yes,
Then you stand, but it doesn't.
Okay,
make it right.
Senator Raming, hold
Let
on,
me stop.
hold on.
Let me stop.
Let me acknowledge you first, please. Have
you
a
very
moment.
much.
Wait, I haven't acknowledged you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Senator Raming, please correct the statement of the senator if you have a correction for him.
I stand on a point of order and I state in the point of order. It's his duty to correct himself. First of all, he cannot say it is known. He can say it's known, not known to him.
Senator Raming, do you
Because it's
have
to me?
So please state it.
No. See, we are responsible.
Pardon?
You cannot say it is not
You built-
known as a
you-
blanket
as a
statement.
minister.
So
Then state it.
I want to guide him to speak properly. Now, if it's not known to him,
You mean in your
or
personal
through his
capacity?
ignorance, I can't help that. But he cannot say
So
it's not
state
known.
it, and he's wrong.
He cannot say it's not. And you can stand on your point of whatever, of support or cuddling or whatever you want to do, but this is my point of order.
Yeah.
So now that's just
Senator Raming, your point of order is noted.
I got it.
Please continue.
Mr.
Continue.
That was in the House of Assembly. Minister,
You're taking words from that. It's the second-hand information. Just move on and say to the best of your knowledge. Say the best of your knowledge.
man, so the fact of the matter is, your ministry built no house. Your administration.
Sorry, one moment, Senator. The chair recognizes Senator Darren Pickstock.
Go ahead, Pixar.
Mr. Vice President, just on a point of clarification. The Minister of Housing and Transport, the Honorable
Minister of Housing and Urban
Transport,
Yes.
the Honorable JoBeth Colby Davis, advised the lower house that the previous administration built no homes.
No.
Yes. Absolutely. As did the current Minister of Housing. That went unchallenged in the lower house. That's the end of the matter. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Senator Russell, please continue.
I think this is a good time for me to ask the thousands of Bahamians seeking affordable homes, whose report will you believe? Mr. Vice President, this administration is well on the way to shaping a progressive, liberal Bahamas that provides opportunities for all Bahamians to own a piece of the rock. No matter where or what circumstances you were born in, this is a culture. This is a new culture, a brave culture, filled with love, hope, and compassion, where there's an opportunity for all and sundry to thrive. With the help of God, this brave administration will continue its mission to lessen the burdens on the back of Bahamians and wipe away every tear. I am delighted to second this VAT amendment bill, and colleagues, like Joshua and Caleb, if we continue to deliver the good news report to the Bahamian people, God, who has begun this good work in us, will bring it to completion through Christ Jesus our Lord. I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act. As many? The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Reuben Ramming.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I'll end where the former senator rested with whose report will you believe? Actually, it reminds me of one of the theme under the Ingram administration, which said is a matter of trust. Because at the end of the day, it is true whose report you're going to believe. We see a lot of things going on in our country at this point in time. And we see the subterfuge that goes on, whereas confetti is thrown in the air and parties are had, while the kitchen sink is many times removed, given away. We see where the sweetest deals are negotiated in the back rooms, and then the crumbs are afforded to anyone other than those who are privileged to be in the back room. We see whose report that you believe when we see that even now the government is now poising to borrow yet almost another $500 million, $1 billion again, and this is just a midterm through the first budget, wherein they would have borrowed monies, and to the chagrin of most of the Bahamian people, they have not yet seen any real representation of all the funds being made. We see that a lot of projections haven't been made. We see all the talk about VAT and the reductions, and yet the Bahamian people are still feeling the many the many fees and other forms of indirect taxations, and not feeling the full impact of the things that are being touted. They sound good on paper, but they're definitely not hitting home to the Bahamian public right now, who is frustrated, and they are actually very, very much so disgusted. And it is very much so, and it's very much plain. And it gets to the point that when we see all the debacle happening in the government, we saw it from their blatant disregard for laws in the Commonwealth of Bahamas, especially as it relates to procurement, which was on the book, which they blatantly ignored until they say, until we present ours. They fail to realize that the law applies to all until the law has actually been changed. And you're obligated to follow the law until the law is changed. It is not a matter of you doing what you want because you could change it. You don't have the authority to do what you want until you have changed it. And while there are laws and procedures on the books, we are obligated to follow those and follow those to the T. I think it's also clear right now about whose report that you believe that even right now there is still so many questions as relate to the many millions of dollars of contracts that has been presented, and there's not been a satisfactory level of recording that is being presented in this regard. We see here right now that even in this budget debate, it is accredited to the Prime Minister in his explanation of some of the monies that he is borrowing, and he explained that they're borrowing to put the money directly into the National Investment Fund. And, there are those who question the validity of that even in law under Section 13 of the Public Debt Management Act. And according to the statements that he was made, I know, Dentsu is always a thing. Is that the same approach you made to your good friend and colleague whose position you now seeking with Damian Goes when you went to Balmoral Island and he approached you on the matter? And this signing agreement you had with Adrian Fox, congratulations to him on that. Whereas,
may I? Upon a clarification, what's the
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Ronald Duncombe.
No. Mr. Chair, it's been last
What's your point of
5 minutes.
order?
It's been last 5 minutes of just making outlandish points. What's the relevance? We're here to debate what today, Mr. Chair? We're all over the place. While, again, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Senator Duncombe has the floor.
Mr. Chairman,
One side. What's
while I
the point of order,
appreciate, Mr.
Senator
Chairman,
Duncombe?
you're giving us leniency. Let's be relevant to what we're talking about, because we're all over the place. I could stand here and talk about anything, making these wild accusations. Let's be factual.
Thank you. Thank you.
we are in the midterm budget debate, and this is also a part of that. And it was
There's
also,
nothing
and it
in
was
the
also-
debate,
and
nothing in the
it-
debate.
One at a
What's
time.
happening with
One
Memorial Island?
My statement.
One at a
But
time.
Memorial Island.
Can I
This
finish my
debate.
statement?
Yes,
There's
Senator.
nothing pertaining this
and-
debate but Memorial Island. Absolutely nothing.
Oh, whose report do you believe?
All right?
Senator Duncombe.
And Balmoral Island has to do with taxpayers'
Nothing
money
given a
and things.
report.
Oh,
Why you
Senator
just saying
Duncombe.
For what?
well, the AG is right here. Tell him
For what?
stand up and object.
For what? I'm
Sen-
not gonna
Tell
object.
him stand up and object to my line
must
of
be
questions.
relevant.
Senator Duncombe.
Whose report you believe?
Relevancy, please. Relevancy. That's all.
Relevancy is irrelevant when we deal in the contextual issue of this matter. We are not in a regular debate. This
Yes.
is part of the midterm budget statement that we have the latitude to go into anything that we choose, as indicated also through the mover of this bill. So we need to absorb and learn to understand how
Senator
the
Raming.
election works. There are certain bills
but we learn
and
to
certain
understand
sessions
also
that
what's
allow.
true.
And
We can
as a
start
result,
saying
the AG is right here.
We can start
The
saying
AG is
anything.
right here.
Senator
because we talk
Duncombe.
about confidence.
We can start-
Senator
We talk about
Duncombe.
confidence and trust.
Senator Rubin, Raming has the floor. Senator
Let's
Raming,
talk
carry
about
on, please.
Investments in this country.
Why you waste my time?
And every investment,
Stop
if your time is wasted, leave.
Stop.
If you feel it's a waste of time to
Senator-
hear the right, you will have
Senator
your
Raming.
and I will have my say.
Stand, please.
I will have my say, and I will finish my
Chairman,
statement.
Mr. Chairman, could you
And
please
if
recognize
I
me?
am wrong,
You
the
stand on a
primary person
point of
will stand
order?
up and say that
My
I'm
point
wrong.
of relevancy, relevance.
Relevance is
I-
irrelevant
I-
in this
I-
kind of
yeah.
matter.
I got that point.
Okay.
I got that point, Senator Duncan. Yes. Senator Raming, carry on, please.
All right, you talking about dwellings and housing. You're talking about all these different matters and so on and so forth. And in this matter, as it relates to it, it is a legitimate question because we're talking about a matter of trust, eh? How it is when we're talking about these things, and when we look into this, you could try to sway, as much as you want, but there are questions of lack of confidence that ride around in this right now as related to this administration. And it's very simple things, you know. Here it is, you have a learned former AG and a deal that we all should be celebrating with Adrian Fox that could be building a great investment on an island that we should all celebrate, regardless of that. You know, Bahamian-owned potential hotel, 14-story, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then here we are right in the midst of it. We have two learned colleagues or former colleagues now combating over the fact that procedures and laws and stuff may not have been looked into, or according to him, he even consulted with the AG in the last quarter of last year, asking what's going on the land that he's leasing, and the AG responded to him, nothing is going on. But the FBC right now, a deal is already signed, a heads of agreement has been signed this year. That's in less than 6 months, I presume, that's the last quarter of the year to right now. And the man is saying, I asked my former colleague as to the land lease that I have legal access to, and I asked him, he said nothing is going on, and here it is, we're hearing now, by June this year, this development is going to be made. So it obviously means something was going on somewhere, and we have a citizen who has been asking towards it, why is this a matter of trust? Because we saw the exact same thing happen again with SpaceX and the mooring issues. SpaceX came upon the Bahamian people like a thief in the night.
On a point of order.
Yes,
On a point of order.
Senator.
We allow this man to ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble and ramble falsehoods in this place. A couple of things to point out. For one, Mr. Damien Gomez was never the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas.
I say a former
No,
colleague.
no, you said a former Attorney General.
I former colleague.
Yes.
I'm speaking to you.
Yeah,
I'm speaking to you.
Senator Raming.
I'm speaking to you.
He was legal affairs.
speaking to you.
Speak to the chair. Senator Raming. Senator Senator Pinder is standing on a point of order.
Journal in the
You can respond. Senator Raming, you can respond after Senator
That's
Raming.
the first point. The second point is, the same learned gentleman never called me and asked me what was going on with his lease in Balmoral Island. And the third point is, I would have never responded to him and said, nothing is happening. Though that event didn't take place. If he said it took place, then that learned gentleman is lying.
Senator
First of all,
Senator Raming, just before you go ahead, Senator Pinder stood on a point of order, right? And so that's precisely the point. So if you, Senator Raming, if you can, because it's an accusation, he stood on a point of order, and so I'm just according to the rules. Can you please prove what Senator Pinder is saying? If you can't, just simply withdraw.
Yes, exactly. First of all, let me acknowledge what the Attorney General asked, and this is how you respond to when somebody give a stand on a point of order. All right? Wherein as the interpretation applied him as being the Attorney General, that is incorrect. He was the legal affair, and he acted as Attorney General under the former administration, and that was the context of which to speak. So in that end, that part is withdrawn. He was acting Attorney General, and he's being a colleague, not only politically, otherwise, et cetera, as stated. Secondly, these words were uttered in the press, and I will table the document by Minister Damien Gomez himself. Does it refute the Attorney General, who would have seen this before in the newspaper? I'm reasonably sure he said it could refute that. Whether the Attorney General disavows it, that is his privilege. I don't stand to fight that. I stand to say the heritage, another learned general, person in the law, has made a public statement, whereas his level of responsibility would show that he would know better than the utter falsehood. So the best I will do is, as I said, I will table what he said, what I just read, and I will present it. An attorney general spoke on the record to that, and he used the word that he is, make sure I'm getting it correct now. How did you say it? Well, one of us is lying, or he probably lying because you never got a call. You used the word lying. Then it's up to Mr. Damian Gomez to refute that. But you notice the issue that the Attorney General has not refuted at all is that the fact that you already went into a deal, whereas obviously due diligence had not been properly done to determine who is the rightful owner of it.
On a
That's
point-
not that was done.
on a point
Because
of
there's a
order.
claim against-
Senator Ramming, Senator
Point
Pinder,
of-
standing on a point of order.
Well,
Senator Pinder.
With all due respect, Senator Ramming has never worked a single day within the Office of the Attorney General. Now, his esteemed colleague has. And I would note his esteemed colleague wouldn't make such accusations, right? In the Office of the Attorney General, we are the lawyers for the government.
Exactly.
On every transaction, on every deal, on every piece of litigation, on every advice to cabinet, the Office of the Attorney General are the lawyers to the government. To undertake and say that there was no action taken, no due diligence taken, no review of the file taken, is frankly a reckless statement. It's a reckless statement. I don't sit here and advise and talk about every single piece of advice that we give every agency of the government, every arm of the government on a day-to-day basis. So he would have no reason to even be able to assert that the file wasn't reviewed or due diligence wasn't reviewed and when it was reviewed and when it wasn't reviewed. We are professional lawyers of the government. Professional lawyers that handle every single matter and transaction with the same type of responsibility, the same type of seriousness, and the same type of professional acumen that it deserves. Yes. And any allegations against the Office of the Attorney General, I ask to be stricken from the record.
Senator Ramming. Senator Ramming. Senator Pinder stood on a point of order. You made an accusation that the Attorney General, through the Attorney General's office, had not done its due diligence, etc. And do you have any evidence to assert or to prove that the Attorney General's office, through the Attorney General, did not do its due diligence in reviewing its file, etc., etc.?
The evidence again is presented right here, where you act.
But that evidence, with all due respect.
No. Because to move any action in court, there must be a complainant. Now, if there is a situation, are we challenging that Damian Gomez doesn't have legal entitlement to any portion of the land that involves within the footprint of this project?
We're not arbiter. I'm not challenging.
No,
We can't.
all right then.
We can't.
So
Senator
whether-
Ramming, I can't challenge anything that somebody says in the paper that they were aggrieved about. Right? No. I'm just saying. Right? Let's be reasonable here. Right? Let reasonable heads prevail. Right? What I'm saying is, the gentleman is accusing or saying something in the newspaper. You are repeating what he is saying,
Yes.
right? And you are going even further by saying that the Attorney General's office has not properly done its due diligence. Is your words, right? What I am asking you to do for the chair is to please prove what you are saying. That's all I'm saying, because that's the point of order that Senator Pinder stood on.
But here it is. The proof, sir, is in the pudding. It's very, very elegant.
No, it can't be any pudding. No, we don't have any pudding here. We don't have any pudding, Senator Ramming.
Would you allow me?
Just
would you allow me-
bring the evidence
would you
to
allow me-
demonstrate.
Would you allow me to finish?
Please.
Would you allow me to finish? The pudding is very, the pudding, let me finish. The pudding is, and it's very elementary, very elementary, my good sir. The government attorney has advised the government, which is true, as stated by the Attorney General, and every agreement, as true, is not refuted by stating the Attorney General, on all matters as it relies to this. The government had gone into a hedge agreement, which is also a legal document. With a,
Senator
listen,
Ramming.
man, if you
Senator
don't
Ramming.
finish-
Senator Ramming.
Flash.
No. Senator Ramming. Senator Ramming.
came with
Senator
a
Raming.
plan that
Senator
no-
Raming.
Yes, say-
Senator Raming.
No claim.
Senator Raming.
Has no claim. All you
Senator
need to
Raming.
say is Damian Gomez has no claim. But if he has a
Senator
claim
Raming.
or a say in the land,
Senator Raming.
something was missed.
Senator Raming, can you address the chair?
If he goes to-
Senator Raming, can you address the chair?
The man-
Senator Raming, can you adjust the chair? What I'm saying, Senator Raming, but please, the chair has the floor. Senator Raming, what I'm saying simply is we are, Senator Raming, what I am saying simply is we are not here to litigate. You are litigating a matter. We're not the courts here. No, you're not. We're not the courts. We're not litigating a matter. All I'm simply asking, Senator Raming, all I am simply asking is you made an assertion. The AG stood up on a point of order. All I'm asking for you to do is to prove what you are saying. That's all. I am not listening to any noises. I'm addressing you directly.
I am tabling. I am tabling this because it's very, 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 very fundamental.
Senator Raming.
It's public thing. It's a legal challenge. If it's a legal challenge to something, obviously something was missed in whatever due diligence.
Senator Raming again,
Now, if you
right?
want to try to strike that, that's your privilege.
Well-
but this is a logical fact.
Well, no.
And I will go further.
No.
Then, if you're not going to strike
Are
it, allow me to continue on.
Senator Raming,
What's the date?
is what you're presenting to me addressing the AG's
Yes, it is.
point of order?
It is. What today's date? What today's date? March the 12th. I'll permit the clerk to print a cleaner copy of this one out. So it's the same thing.
Senator Raming, I'm not going to move from the point because there's a point of order on the floor. There is a point of order on the floor.
Yes.
And all I'm saying simply to you is the rules dictate that if there is a point of order, you're asserting something, then he who asserts must prove. All I'm saying to you is if that evidence, if the evidence is not addressing the point of order, then it would be stricken from the register.
The evidence.
Can you please present the point of order?
Yeah.
Can you please present the evidence?
That's not a problem. You get it. I've already signed the table. I'm getting a clean copy for you. What's the problem? In the evidence and the accusations that has been made across that, it is very, very fundamental. You know, all the HS do is stand up and simply says that Mr. Gomez has no claim to land. Listen, I don't care about the rest, you know. All right, and if he does not have a, listen here, the man.
Senator Raming, can you present the evidence, please?
Listen here. I didn't finish my point. And then secondly, well, let's run on. Let's go on with this since we're talking about
Senator Raming, can you present the evidence, please?
You mind? I'll get the clerk to print your claim.
No, can I see the evidence because I want to address the point of order now.
Okay. Well, do you review as I continue, or you want me to pause while you read? Because it's about a 2-3 page. What do you want to do? Let me know, sir. Do I sit while you read, or do you want me to continue to when you're ready? You could do.
Yes, you can continue.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then we see the same thing that advises our government. Here it is now. We have a situation going on in our country that impacts us in all kinds of ways. We have now SpaceX in our country. And to this day, I am not aware of any kind of regulations or safety regulations specifically involving this specific matter. Or, I don't know, can the government disclose any kind of agreement that they would have had as relate to the SpaceX and whatever due diligence they would have, because there's a great concern among the Bahamian people as relate to the risk not only to our environment but also our health and safety. Even right now, they're finding debris in islands as close as Andros. What if portions of debris would have fell in Nassau or land in one of our preschools? Then would we take it seriously? We're just simply saying is we need to ask, is there any kind of specific legislation, because this is a very, very unique form of incursion in our country. This isn't a ship leaking oil or gas leak somewhere. You know, the records.
Senator Raming, can I just interject? please. So I've read this communication. Like I said, the Attorney General stood up on a point of order. I've read the communication you table, and it says nothing to what you are asserting. Can you please point out to me, before you go on, can you please point out to me where in that communication it is saying that, and you are asserting that the Attorney General's office, through the Attorney General, did not do its due diligence?
What is being asserted is very, very clear because the man has claimed.
Senator Raming, just say it.
Listen, you want me to talk or you
Yeah,
want to?
no, I just want
be
you.
my
We need to
interpreter,
go on.
Mr. Deputy.
We need to go on, Senator
No,
Raming.
don't rush me if you ask me to interpret, and my time is my time.
Okay,
Actually,
can you-
quite frankly, you interrupting me in my explanation is wasting my time.
Senator Raming,
No, no.
Senator
I can
Raming?
move with my time, but I please.
can you please go on?
All right, so settle. Because when you have here a learned attorney, QC, high-level learned
Senator
attorney,
Raming,
let
can you
me
please
finish my
go
thought.
on? I interjected you because I wanted you to point something out
All right.
to me. Can you please point it out to me?
He is stating, and showing that he has documentary proof and right of ownership or occupancy or rights of lease for the land that is now being allotted for somebody else.
Senator Raming,
on.
Senator Raming.
And if the, listen,
No,
and
no,
if
no.
the Attorney
Senator
General
Raming,
advisor to the government
Senator Raming,
has this level of claim,
Senator Raming,
there must have been a lapse in due diligence.
Senator Raming.
It's A, B, C, D. That is fundamental.
No, it is not.
And until the Attorney General is willing
Senator
to
Raming.
assert otherwise.
Senator Raming,
Other than that,
Senator
I think
Raming.
the statement that is here.
Senator Raming, I am going to strike it off the record,
You can
and that is my
strike it.
ruling.
And I'll,
Please move on.
You can strike it. And
It
I
is
will
it is
split
struck
in a different
off.
context.
It is struck off the register.
There is too many.
Please move on.
There are too many occasions where there seems to be four lapses in due diligence, haste, and waste. Man, FTX ran through the whole gambit of the whole Commonwealth of the Bahamas and got approval at a level that did not happen. We would have seen, even during the whole thing, it brought into question the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and the level of its standing with persons being able to move funds back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen so many things happening in this country.
On a point
Senator Raming,
on a point of order. On a point of order.
floor recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
This honorable gentleman continues to spurt off untruths, exaggerations, and frankly just made up propaganda. So just to educate him a little bit on FTX, since he brought up FTX. It was under his administration that FTX was licensed to operate in the Bahamas. In fact, it's his administration that invited them here and caused for the license to be issued. It was his administration. The second point I'd like to make on this is worldwide, the Bahamas was recognized as having the most robust digital asset regulatory framework in the world. Won awards internationally for it. Internationally. This is a piece of legislation that their administration passed. Their administration brought and passed. No, their administration brought and passed, right? Their administration brought and passed. So he must be criticizing the regulatory framework of his administration. And the third point I would like to raise is if it was not for the regulatory framework, the excellent work of the Securities Commission of the Bahamas in acting swiftly, customers of FTX are getting more than 100% recovery because of the laws and the regulatory framework and how we conducted ourselves in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. So I would ask that his comment regarding FTX be stricken from the record because the facts, the unobjectionable facts, demonstrate otherwise, Mr. Vice President. Thank you.
Did you amend the legislation? Did you amend the legislation?
Can you address the chair, please?
Was the legislation amended from the excellent format in which it was? You just see the big lapse in a lot of things that came across us as it relates to these things in due diligence. And I'm still asking, even as it relates to this, especially this current matter of SpaceX, especially to this matter as it relates to the mooring, especially as it relates to the health and safety of our Bahamian people and their concerns as it relates to this whole matter. we really would like to know clearly what is being done, you know, and under what framework, apart from an invitation or whatever else, that something that has this level of risk was also brought in. The AG, because, let me just finish just a second,
Yeah.
just a second. Because why this is important, you see? I understand that there are times, there are things that the government must hold close to the vest because of a lot of reasons and everything else. But matters of public safety or anything else, we need to be very clear about it with our people. We need to take responsibility when lack of proper dissemination of information create hysteria or any kind of concern in the Bahamian people's mind if we have the ability to clarify and make plain to the Bahamian people to avoid some of this disenchantment that is happening. So I would hope that the AG can advise, because it has not been satisfactorily clear in the minds of the Bahamian people, as to what has been done and or what is going to be done to address the health and safety concerns as it relate to the SpaceX situation.
The floor recognizes Senator the Honorable Ryan Pinder.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It's truly unfortunate that the senator, who holds a distinguished position as a senator in the country, who is a member, who is,
I thought that man.
no, you are, who was a member of the previous administration, and as a member of the previous administration and a member of government at the time, should have certain responsibilities to understand and to be aware of things that are happening within the country. So the Deputy Prime Minister, the minister responsible for aviation, made an announcement shortly after a letter of intent was signed with SpaceX about landings of the Falcon rocket in our jurisdiction. That was a public release, a public announcement to advise the Bahamian people what was going on. The Deputy Prime Minister also, Mr. Vice President, tabled in the House of Assembly the Civil Aviation Space Flight and Reentry Regulations that provide the regulatory framework for space flight through our airspace and landings within our country. A very robust regulatory framework, benchmarked globally and internationally, set up with the highest standards of the FAA, the Europeans, throughout the world. And I invite the good senator to review them. They're actually on the civil aviation website from when they were first signed into law. So this disclosure was out there. And he would also understand, Mr. Vice President, that if you read those regulations, it's evident that any overflight in our jurisdiction that is 100 kilometers or below through our airspace is a regulated function and needs an overflight license. And any landing in the Bahamas requires a landing license. In fact, civil aviation also has a MOU working with the FAA in the United States, who handles these regulatory functions in the United States, to provide support, advice, and the exchange of information. So our regulator is tied in with the top regulator who regulates these launches. And so the information flow and the security and the regulatory framework is there. Now, one piece of clarification I would like to make is certainly we had the Falcon rocket land in the Exuma Keys, right? And that was subject to a landing license, which they were issued by civil aviation, right? The spacecraft, known as the Heavy Rocket and the Starship, which is a different spaceship than landed here, different rocket than landed here, entirely different, for a different purpose and a different scope. And in fact, they are doing test flights. They're not even commercializing that form. That is outside of our airspace. In fact, that was about 165 kilometers up in space. And therefore, the international recognized threshold for airspace is 100 kilometers. So that was actually outside of our airspace when it fell apart, exploded, whatever you want to call it. And so that was outside the regulatory remit of the Bahamas. So when the debris falls, it is governed by a number of pieces of legislation and regulatory frameworks that we have in place today. Certainly, the Environmental Planning and Protection Act is probably the most robust that handles that type of event in the Bahamas. And we are also parties to international space treaties. The Bahamas is, certainly the United States is. And there are international space liability treaties that we are members of. And those international space liability treaties make it very clear from an international law point of view that the launching state, if they are signatory, which the United States is, those entities who are launching have strict liability, meaning there's no determination on whether they have to pay or not. They have strict liability with respect to remediation, safety elements, and any damage done in the jurisdiction. Any damage done in the jurisdiction. And that is why the next day, SpaceX was in the country doing an assessment with our environmental regulators to see the scope of what had happened and to understand and realize that they bear all of the necessary cost and exposure with respect to that one incident. And that is clearly under the international space treaties in which we are parties to. And so I just want you to ask for some clarification on the framework on how that works. I hope it's helpful for you. I hope it's helpful for the Bahamian people. We certainly did our due diligence on the matter. We certainly retained expert counsel on space law matters. We did a complete evaluation of this, and even post-incident, we continue to do a complete evaluation, and we're tied in on a daily basis on what is happening on recovery, on cleanup, and any liability that may exist.
Thank you very much, Attorney,
Excellent.
for that
So-
clarification.
and so I would like for the AG as well, because here is another conflicting thought that it is valued that an explanation be had. See, what a lot of people don't realize, we are in public office. Unlike being in the lower house, when you're in the lower house, I'm not Ruben Raming. I represent the people of Pinewood at that time. You know, you're not Brave Davis, you are Cat Island. That means your personality is out of the way, you speak for your people. When you're in the Senate, it's a different thing. We are supposed to be people of elder statesmanship. And the whole purpose of the Senate is yes, mean wisdom. It doesn't mean age. That has always been the definition that was involved with the statement. All right? We've always been the definition, historical definition of the Senate. Now, what we do is not my concern. What it actually is. It's because the Senate, when they review legislation, they bring also an alternative view, or they bring up elements, or they provoke a different level of conversation that is even more so than in the House. And that's a part of the whole vetting process as you relate to all these things. Because the Bahamian people need to know some things. It ain't always about right or wrong, you know. It's about addressing the matter, especially the persons, and that's why it's being presented here. And all these things are being presented here. Because who better to present these things to, but right in the presence of ground zero, in this case, the Attorney General. But we get offended when somebody wants to present something, and then he stands. And he himself could attest to the fact that my history in the Senate would have proved that if I get a question, I'm going to present the question, because he is here to interpret the question, because the Bahamian people need to understand and know the answer to these things. And I guarantee you, to date, that would have been your best presentation on the matter publicly. Now you see, you have not had any. We need, no, but you are still a lawyer. And my job, as far as I'm concerned, where I stand, is to ensure that answers are brought forth as relate to any matter. It ain't about me. When I go back home, I settle and drink my coconut water, and I cool. And then we have also the concerns of the Bahamian people as relate to the mooring issues. We see some things going out, and it has been represented that it is possibly I've seen in some instances where they said it could bring up to almost $1 billion. You're seeing up to $58 million a year in revenues and so on and so forth. And the Bahamian people is asking, okay, why all of a sudden a private interest, instead of keeping that to go against the revenue stream into the public purse, for better management and operations, and then you begin to wonder if these things had been properly thought of. I can't wait for the time that when we can sit now and debate the regulations that were laid, but that is not the point in time for now. You see, as it relates to that, when the point in time comes, so it was laid, so it was enacted. So when we look at these things, there are so many questions that are moving around with the Bahamian people's mind that cause us to wonder. Why? Then we reach to the point where we see again right now things that also make it seem as if there is almost insider trading or a kind of insider dealing, even as it relates to the moorings agreement. I am glad that it was actually canceled, but how did it get that far in the first place? How did it get that far in the first place? We have concerns now with the issue of Athol Island. And even up until last week, persons had sent me photos and stuff. I did not verify it, and they are claiming that work was beginning on Athol Island again. And we've heard in the lower house the interests, some of the interests that are involved with that was expressed in the lower house. So what's the deal going on again with Athol Island? Why are we seeing so many things happening, well, in particular, Athol Islands, and even as relate, and we see the benefit of moorings, some things happening in and around our national park. But Athol Island is a big concern to a lot of persons. So when are we going to get some additional clear information on exactly what is happening with that and how our people could be assured that they are not persons who are taking advantage of their leverage and their positioning in order to allow us to be able to properly guard and protect our heritage? It is claimed that from the 2017 to now that some $58 million was actually spent on travel. I don't say too much about travel, but the excessiveness about with it is somewhat alarming at many times when you see the increasing rate of the interval and the level of travel that is being expended. And people want to make sure that they're having value for their money. Because when you look at even the issue of the travel, and we're talking about homes, that $58 million alone could build 306 low-cost houses that you could actually give away to people, because our country is continually hemorrhaging money. We still see a state of affair like we see what's going on here with the Rand Memorial Hospital, where in the budget there's allotted, about $75 million? Not to Rand, to build a hospital complex, let me find it, in Grand Bahama. Some $75 million, and the people are asking, so then why was it that in the budget, and a contract was actually signed under the former administration for $90 million, that was actually halted by this administration, and now $75 million is being borrowed from CIBC for construction of hospital in Grand Bahama and repair to the Princess Margaret Hospital. And we had basically at the same time $90 million allotted, and that was also for upgrades and repair and expansion to the RAN, and also work to be done on the Princess Margaret Hospital, which was stopped, renewed, and canceled. We find ourselves asking our question, what's the logic behind all these things? We need to be able to sit down at all times and be able to trust every move that is being made. Where there is controversy in the air, where we get clarity from our people to make sure that they feel comfortable with what they're doing. Instead of these numbers that we find pushed around many times, that tends to sound a lot like fluff, because many times when you look at the value, like the last exemption that was passed, the value of that was about $30-odd million in cash credit against the government. But people feel that heritage, you see, but you give a tax increase reduction, that was in the food category, right, Minister Alcides. But at the end, they feel on the back end, the wind is being sucked out more than protection is being given in the food regard. When they look at the Golden Yoke Project and they see about $15 million odd pumped to it over these years, and now we're starting to see some sort of movement, and just recently we said that the project was halted because they were getting some new feed mills installed inside of it, and we see eggs and chickens now coming, and you really begin to wonder how slow $15 million could work as it relates to chicken. It takes 6 weeks to get from baby to to market in many instances, and how difficult it is, and what kind of difficulty you really been incurring when you get all the money you need to get a program up and running. I was pleased to hear when Michael Alcides, Senator Alcides, mentioned about the government providing some degree of assistance to some of the poultry operators that we have here in the Cumberland Bahamas. I think you mentioned Abaco Big Bird. Abaco Big Bird. Because one of the first things came to mind was, wow, if out of that 15 million, if you did that, I would approach those producers even in the first place to listen here, how much you need to get your stuff up to grade A while we do other stuff within the community, in the homes, on the smaller scale and otherwise, et cetera, to get your operation going. I remember the time when I toured Abaco Big Bird and also Yellowbird, what's it called, Yellowbird? Gaston Road? That was it called? Yellowbird. The Bahamas was to the point, according to those operators there, not only self-sufficient in poultry production, but they had the capacity to service the Caribbean as well. But that fell out from among us like crazy, so we've always had the ability to meet that standard. And I hear wondering how the impact of that money was not more swiftly felt, as opposed to right now, how we say, is it 2 years there? 2 years later, and we're struggling with the program. And then finally, the Bahamian people still find themselves wondering at the end of the day, whereas some of the monies that was borrowed under the first budget that was passed about 6 months ago, whereas I think they say somewhere over 300 million might not have yet been disbursed. Senator Alcides, maybe you could answer this. Why is it that we seemingly now need an extra $500 million? And how does that impact projection? We know well that the government revenues come in spurts. So sometimes the projection, most of the revenue may come in the latter half of a year, especially as related to certain taxation items, et cetera, et cetera. And so people are wondering what's happening with the monies. And then there are some real legitimate points in the travel matter, especially when you get to the point where it's being stated that $1.5 million as relate to COP 29 and things like that. When people hear these large sums for delegations and their travel, the first thing come to our mind is wastage. And we want to know what's happening with this money. And they have a right to know. Clear explanation, a right to know. We're talking about building homes. We're talking about wanting to build homes. We're talking about wanting to do things. But we got to be able to stop these cost overruns, man. We got to be able to stop this wastage going on in our country. And this is historical. I've said this before in the Low House. I said in this house over and over again. Government carry the public purse as if the public purse is made out of sieve wire of some kind. We waste and we blow too much money. We've seen it. Sometimes these same things, maybe like COP and some of these other examples of these external bodies that we have to engage with, sometimes we know about them a year out. But many times, if you check the record, tickets getting purchased maybe the week of and change maybe the day of. Because we in government don't mean that's our money. When we planning a cruise for our family to save that money, we booking that cruise a whole 2 years out sometimes, and you get the cruise for a couple $100 instead of $1,000. When we planning to go to on vacation and stuff, man, we logged that ticket in a long time. Yes, I know there will be emergencies coming into government that we got to respond to, but it's become habitual in government period. It's almost as because the cash there and it ain't coming out of my pocket. I could buy a ticket for $7,000 that would have been $900,000 if I'd have booked it 3 months ago. And these are things that hemorrhage, and then at the end of the day, when something don't get done or something else need to be taxed more, it's because we failed to patch the wastage. And this is the problem. What are we doing to address that? I mean, for God's sake, let me give you a quick example. Even right now, it is likely true, confirmed, That government's still using certain travel agencies to book tickets to get commission on things when now anybody can go on their cell phone and book these tickets. That alone is a savings. How much commission gone out on this one travel thing, the co-op that cost $1.something million? I'm simply saying is maybe we need to just settle ourselves down and treat the government and the public purse like we do our own money. We promising expanding free medication for 160,000 people in the country. That sounds good and everything else, but where's the program that counteract the same communicable and non-communicable diseases to stop the hemorrhaging? And how can the people have confidence in an extra 160,000 persons worth of medication when even to this day, historically, Princess Margaret running short of medication? Be mature, sir. If anybody, my Lord, Lord forgive him. What did I say? To this day. What did I say? To this day. What did I say? Historically. Yeah, I have. Yeah. Oh my.
Address the chair, Senator Rami.
I'll focus on you, Mr. Chair. I'll focus on you. You know, this is a historic problem that we've been having in our country. And so what happens is, when there are grandiose promises, whether with good intentions or not, when you look against it with the reality, when you realize that, my God, we having difficulty getting medications and all these other different type things, we got to find a way to cut the hemorrhaging. All right, so we have allotted money. Is some of this money from this 75 grand going to finally finish the necessary repair on the Princess Margaret Hospital so that those things that was promised to have been open up the kitchen, et cetera, from months ago will now be completed? Is there a timeline? Because that too is still a very legitimate concern. Listen here, I say in government this, fix the road if only for yourself. So when you leave here, you drive good. You know why? Because if you drive good, everybody else driving good. Fix the Princess Margaret Hospital if you only thinking about your mom. You know why? Because if accident emergency can serve your mom quick and ain't nobody know who she is, then your mom, her mom could get there quick. Let's improve the quality of the beds, even if you imagine one day you may be there yourself in the hospital and you would like it to be a certain way. Then fix it, because you never know the day when you may end up in the same Princess Margaret Hospital. Pay the nurses, figure it out. This has been happening historically. Find a way to make them happy and then fire some of them ones with them bad attitudes, because healthcare is not just medicine, it's attitude, how you treat people. I'm tired of hearing the stories how people go into hospital and they get depressed at how their treatment, their bedside treatment, which is delivered to them, has been so horrific. I never said that. I said some people. And so this is why I say healthcare is not just an occupation, it's a calling. Because I've seen nurses, I'm telling you this, I've seen nurses where there were non-responsive patients. When they begin to talk to somebody, the person heals better. And when they came out, they say, you know what? I thank God for this particular nurse. Because when I had my child, she treated me not like a nurse, she treated me like a mother. But I know of the story where many people complain about how persons would have actually suffered and died and have all kinds of accusations. What I'm simply saying is we got to find a way to cut the hemorrhaging and the wastage of money. Stop spending and overspending on contracts like we don't do our due diligence. Stop overspending on projects and be accountable for the people's money, because at the end of the day, no matter what you say in this budget to feel good, right outside now, the pulse of the average Bahamian people is still doom and gloom. It is still doom and gloom. It ain't where even you all want it to be. And so people are seeking better out of their government. And these questions need to answer. So with that, I also thank the AG. Because the whole point of this was to get some answers. And I wait for Damian Gomez's response.
Thank you, Senator the Honourable Reuben Ramming. The chair recognizes Senator the Honourable Randy Roll.
you very much.
The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Randy Roll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, Bahamas, my fellow Bahamians. I want to begin with a story that is all too familiar with many of us in this room and to countless Bahamian families across our nation. Meet the Johnsons, Jamal and Janet. They are hard-working parents to two children, JJ and Jamisha. Janet is a dedicated nurse, and Jamal is a construction foreman. Together, they rise before dawn, work long hours, and strive to create a better life for their children. One filled with opportunity, education, and the hope of a brighter future. Like so many families in our beautiful country, they are driven by love, ambition, and the desire to give their children what they never had. Yet, despite their tireless efforts, the reality of their lives is shaped by the constant struggle to make ends meet. Each week, they face the challenge of grocery shopping, often just managing to stay within their tight budget with the help of super value stamps. Now, they are forced to make choices, and difficult choices. Do I buy cream or milk? Do I buy cereal or oats? Do I buy canned goods that last longer or splurge on fresh fruits for their children? The challenge doesn't stop there, though, Mr. Deputy. Jamal relies on the family car to go to work. But with the rising gas prices, the cost of commuting has become a heavy burden. On days when the budget is particularly tight, he hands the car keys to Janet and takes the bus, finding ways to make it to work. This is just one example, Mr. Deputy, of the daily struggles of Bahamians like the Johnsons are facing. The cost of living is rising, with grocery prices climbing, gas prices and record highs, and utility bills steadily increasing. These realities have made it harder for families to get by, and the stress, it continues to take a toll. Mr. Vice President, as we know, the Bahamas is currently ranked 6th highest in the country, in the world, for the cost of living, with Monaco, the Cayman Islands, Singapore, Switzerland, and Iceland surpassing us. For over 2 decades, we have constantly ranked among the top 10 most expensive places to live, with our position even reaching 2nd place at times, Mr. Deputy. But here is the part of the story we don't always see. Despite these challenges, Bahamians are not facing them alone. The current government, led by Prime Minister Davis, has been working tirelessly to ease their burdens. Through targeted initiatives aimed at reducing the cost of living, the government has provided tax relief for essential goods, subsidized utilities, and launched programs that directly benefit hard-working families like the Johnsons. Yeah. This administration, Mr. Deputy, has so far lowered VAT to 10%, reduced custom duties again, and introduced policies to boost domestic food production. While global inflammatory, while global measures continue to challenge us, this administration has steadfast in its commitment to shielding Bahamians from the worst of these internal shocks. We are ensuring that families like the Johnsons are not left behind. Janet and Jamal are just one example, but they represent so many Bahamians who, despite the struggles, are finding relief in the government's efforts. This is a government that understands the pain of living paycheck to paycheck and is committed to making a real difference. Mr. Deputy, this Davis-led administration has taken a bold, decisive action, and there is more to come. We've reduced VAT to 10%, lowered custom duties, and introduced policies to expand domestic food production. Moreover, we've made strategic investments to protect our economy and provided much-needed relief to our citizens. Even amidst the global inflation and disruptions in international shipping, this government, Mr. Deputy, has worked diligently to diversify our diplomatic relations, both regionally and globally. By strengthening these ties, we are positioning the Bahamas to capitalize on new opportunities, building direct partnerships with investors and suppliers. This, Mr. Deputy, is the result of investments in diplomacy, which are vital for the future of our nation. I see Senator Seymour isn't here, but, one day last Senate session, she, was talking about all of the relationships that this government formed. And this here talks about the benefit of those relationships. But I was happy that Senator Raming was able to speak right after her and set the record straight for her, so I thank him even for that. While some of these efforts may require us to travel and leave our shores, Mr. Deputy, I can tell you from my own diplomatic experience that face-to-face engagements are essential. They open doors to new economic partnerships that will benefit the Bahamas for years to come. But, Mr. Deputy, we will not forget the past. I understand the frustration from some of the members across the aisles. Under their previous leadership, Mr. Deputy, they were often boxed in by lack of vision and too much paranoia, unable to engage effectively on the global stage. Thankfully, Mr. Deputy, this progressive Liberal Party government has ushered in a new day for all Bahamians, one focused on steady progress, growth, and prosperity for every citizen. Yes, there has been challenges, Mr. Deputy, but this government has been unwavering in its commitment to moving our country forward. In just a few weeks, Mr. Deputy, Bahamian families will experience more relief, as announced by Prime Minister beginning April 1st. The VAT on unprepared foods will be reduced from 15% to 5%. This reduction will apply to items sold in grocery stores, convenience stores, and those imported directly. We believe this will lead to more affordable prices on the shelves, ensuring that essential goods are more accessible to all Bahamians. I want to assure the public that the Consumer Protection Commission, Mr. Deputy, along with price control led by Rex Adderley, will be actively monitoring this reduction to ensure the benefits are passed on to the people. Mr. Deputy, today, as we discuss the 24-25 mid-year budget, let us remember that these measures are not numbers only on a page. They represent real lives, real struggles, and the resilience of the Bahamian people. As the voice of the consumer in this great country, Mr. Deputy, I stand before you today with the honor of overseeing the Consumer Protection Commission. Consumption is a fundamental part of our daily routine. Whether we are parents, students, workers, or citizens, we all rely on goods and services to support our lives and ambitions. Unfortunately, the Consumer Protection Commission has in the past faced many challenges. And it was hard from the start as it was not given the teeth or the cash to really fight on behalf of the Bahamian consumers. With limited resources in the past and authority, Bahamian consumers were left with more lip service than effective service. And the consumers who were supposed to always be right, Mr. Deputy, was far too frequently wronged by providers. We have seen global wages stagnant while prices soar and supply chains remain disrupted. These pressures are only increasing the vulnerability of consumers, making it more essential than ever that the government steps in to help. Under these conditions, it is critical that the CPC continues to work to protect Bahamian consumers. Consumers in the Bahamas are entitled to 8 internationally recognized fundamental rights, approved by the United Nations and Consumer International. These rights form the foundation of the recently amended Consumer Protection Act of 2023, passed by this administration. Since taking the helm at CPC, Mr. Deputy, my team and I have worked aggressively to raise awareness about consumer rights and protection. Knowledgeable consumers help drive economic growth and reduce market manipulation. And the actions taken by the CPC, Mr. Deputy, are a testament to this strategy. Mr. Deputy, I am proud to report, as I did in the update at the OPM, that so far for 2025, our Complaints and Investigations Department has resolved more than 11 complaints, totaling $15,664.02, with investigations into another 33 ongoing cases valued at over $47,000. These numbers demonstrate, Mr. Deputy, that the CPC is on track to surpass last year's figures of 444 complaints and over $242,000 in recoveries. Mr. Deputy, members of the CPC are constantly conducting site visits and site inspections on various providers, especially those who are known to us, if I'm able to use the police terms. We often see these issues from providers refusing to refund when it's clearly a defective good purchase, to expired items that are so outdated that it is outrageous to even offer them at a discount. Consumers can call our hotline or our main office daily to seek help about various issues plaguing them. We, Mr. Deputy, want Bahamian public to trust and know that the Commission is serious about addressing and enforcing the rights of all consumers. We are on your side. Okay.
Mr. Vice President, I move that the business of the Senate do continue beyond 1 p.m. this afternoon.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of the Senate do continue beyond 1 p.m. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of the Senate will continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. As I said, we want the public to know that we are on your side. We want the Bahamian public to know that we are on your side. Mr. Deputy, I am also proud to report that on top of the Commission's efforts, we are working collaboratively with regulatory bodies from across the Bahamas to strengthen consumer protection. More recently, the Bahamas Bureau of Standards and Quality and the CPC has petitioned the International Organization for Standardization, ISO, to become a participating member of its International Consumer Policy Committee. Our application has been accepted by its chairman, and we are anticipating joining this international federation of national standards bodies from more than 160 countries. We believe, Mr. Deputy, we believe that this move will ultimately contribute to significantly to using standards as a tool for greater consumer protection in the Bahamas. The CPC will also be working in tandem with the Ministry of Labor, the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce, and Price Control towards stronger enforcement of laws in regards to violations. What better way to do this, Mr. Deputy, than collaborating with fellow members and working towards shared goals that benefit the broader consumer community? Together, we are creating a more unified approach to tackle unfair trade practices, such as price gouging and enforcement of stronger laws, working again also closely with the Office of the Attorney General. This collaborative group will make sure preventative action is also taken to deter unfair trade practices and infractions against consumers. Mr. Deputy, I am happy to advise that CPC staff and the board are working on an advisory proposal for the Minister of Economic Affairs that will specifically seek to address price gouging in the market and provide redress to consumers. Mr. Deputy, consumers can trust that the Consumer Protection Commission is serious about its role. We are here to defend their rights, advocate on their behalf, and ensure that they are not taken advantage of. Before I take my seat, Mr. Deputy, let me address the recent egg shortage. Now, while the CPC does not have direct oversight in this matter, we are working closely with the relevant agencies to ensure that consumers are protected. Collaboration is key, and we have extended an open invitation to all stakeholders to join us in strengthening our efforts. Mr. Deputy, I want to tell the Bahamians all under the sound of my voice that their government is actively working to lower the cost of living. Our collaborative efforts are conducting a full analysis on the matter and hope to present a comprehensive plan to government shortly. While you will hear more about the medium and long-term goals in the near future, for now, our regulatory bodies continue to be the watchdog, ensuring that the public is protected from unfair practices in the marketplace. Mr. Deputy, colleagues, and fellow Bahamians, this budget is just another step forward in this administration's blueprint for change. And with those words, Mr. Deputy, I support this midterm budget. Thank you.
As many, the chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michaela Barnett Ellis. The chair recognizes Senator the Honorable Michael Alcides.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mr. Vice President, I move that the business of the Senate do suspend until 3 p.m. this afternoon.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the business of this Senate be suspended to 3 p.m. As many are in favor say aye. Aye. Those who oppose say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. The business of this Senate stands suspended to 3 p.m.